All right, shalom and welcome. Today we are going to go over the foundations. Genesis part 4, chapter 4, right? Now Adam knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain. And she said, I have brought forth a man with the help of Yahweh. Then she bore again, this time brother was named Abel that was born. Now Abel was a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And one of Yahweh's Sabbaths, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of fruit of the ground to Yahweh. Now what we understand here is what we haven't learned yet, is every new month on the first of the month is considered a Sabbath day, a day of remembrance, a day that we would know. That's why we ain't got to worry about being on a desert island, lost, bonked on the head and all that, because all the remnant are supposed to know on the first day of the month, we're supposed to keep the first day of the month, and we're supposed to blow the shofar on the first day of the month. That way we all know, hello, it's the first day of the month. And then the regular Sabbaths fall in line with that. So going forward, and on Yahweh's Sabbath, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of fruit of the ground to Yahweh. And Abel, besides bringing his offering of fruit of the ground, also brought a sacrifice of firstlings of his flock and of their fat. And Yahweh honored Abel and his offerings, but he did not honor Cain in his offering. And Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. So Yahweh said to Cain, why are you angry? Why are you downcast? Your countenance, why is it fallen? Right? If you do righteousness, will you not be accepted? Now, this is what half the church world, that's why they don't want you to read this part of your Bible, because churchianity says righteousness is filthy rags. Oh, all these things that we do, we're just filthy, filthy, filthy. But they don't understand that's because of sin. That's because of fallen. But because of sin and because of fallen, that means you should do better, right? You don't break your mama's great vase that's been in the family for 100 years and then turn around and kick her glasses too. Well, you forgave me for breaking the vase. Well, why don't I just throw your nice prized glasses that's been around for 50 years on the floor too? I mean, why not? I'm just a filthy, dirty, unrighteous person. We don't live like that. We don't let people live like that. Well, we're kind of sort of going into that for some reason, but we're not supposed to, right? So they got it backwards again. If you do righteousness, will you not be accepted? What's so hard to comprehend about that one? And everybody says, I ain't going to do anything righteous. I just call upon. No, you do the righteousness. You do what he told you to do. And if you do righteousness, sin is crouching back up. If you do righteousness, will you not be accepted? And if you do not righteousness, sin is crouching at your door. The desire to sin is with you, but you must overcome it. Has anything changed from here to then? Because Yeshua came and swept away your sins because of all the atonement, has that changed that you're still a sinner? Has that changed that you still want to drink, smoke, cuss, do whatever you want to do? When you get in that, sometimes don't you feel like that old person in a way? Don't you feel that trying to overcome you? But you don't, because why? You know better, because your righteousness. Well, I plead this and I plead, you have to not do it, or you're going to do it. You can plead all you want to and beg all you want to, but if you don't pray and let the enemy flee from you, you're going to do exactly what you used to do. You're going to be the same person you have been. And when you do this, it says sin is crouching at the door. It's real simple, right? Now Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass when they were spread abroad that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and killed him. Isn't this just like the world? Lie and hide it. Lie and do this. Lie and wait. Instead of just admitting he didn't bring the best, he didn't do the best, it's somebody else's fault, right? Something happens in the church building, something happens at work, something happens. Even the person that did it is pointing to somebody else, right? Then Yahweh said to Cain, where is Abel, your brother? And he said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? Now he's lying. Not only did he kill him, now he's lying about killing him. You see how it goes? He sat there and told him, if you're unrighteous, the sin's there and it's going to overcome you. And how many times do we find ourselves 3 lies down from the truth because we didn't think, when we really knew? I mean, well, I didn't think that would hurt you. I didn't think that would bother you. You knew better. You knew when that came out of somebody's mouth. You knew when they broke your vase. You knew if people knew about this. That's why you tried to tape it up. That's why you tried to cover it up, because you would come out with the truth. You knew what would have happened. But as it grows farther and farther, it gets worse and worse, right? So it's not the churchianity we see, that they're proclaiming. It's just not that way. Am I my brother's keeper? The audacity. But the audacity of somebody who does these things and then says, you made me do it, right? You ever watch them videos on YouTube? People break stuff, tear stuff up, break things, and then say, oh, the game made me do it. You made me do it. Somebody else made me do it. And he said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Again, Yahweh knew what happened. He already knew. He asked him so he would repent and come clean. The same thing we do sometimes. You ask somebody and you're really hoping they're going to tell you the truth. And what they do? Lie to you. So now you are cursed from the earth, which was opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the soil, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. You shall be a fugitive, and you will be ever searching for peace on the earth. And Cain said to Yahweh, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Isn't that always what the criminal says? Isn't that always what the guilty say? You're going to do the crime, you got to be prepared to do the time. But very few are. They're crying, whining, and, oh no, I can't take it. You did it. Lucky he didn't scorch him like a bug right there for doing what he done, right? Surely you have driven, there's your grace, there's your mercy. People, the grace and mercy is only in Matthew and Mark and Luke. And if that ain't grace and mercy, he didn't smash him like a bug and say, your blood and this blood and that's that. You want grace and mercy? Here it is. Verse 12, 13, and 14. And Cain said to Yahweh, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Surely you have driven me out this day from the face of the ground. I shall not be seen by your face. I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond on the earth. for there shall be continual war, vengeance, and retaliation. And Yahweh said to him, is it established? Whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahweh set a mark on Cain, lest anyone finding him should kill him. Then Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch, and he built a city. So again, what we was talking about earlier was what? We went through before and we said that how does Cain get this wife? So that's what we talked about, right? Cain got his wife, we see. Remember what we talked in the last section of we're gonna get to Cain found him a wife, and where did this wife come from and all this. So now we can see clearly, right? And he called the name of the city after the name of his son, which is Enoch. And to Enoch was born Ired, and Ired begot Methiel, and Methiel begot Methuselah, and Methuselah begot Lamech. And Lamech took for himself two wives. The name of his first was Ada, and the name of the second was Zillah. And Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. So it's telling us more and more and more, right? His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of those who play the harp and flute. And as for Zillah, she also bore to Elkanah, a teacher of every craftsman in bronze and iron, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Then Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. O wives of Lamech, listen to my speech, for I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77fold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son, and named him Seth, for she said, for Yahweh has appointed another seed for me in the place of Abel, whom Cain killed. And as for Seth, to him also a son was born, and he named him Enosh. It was then that the name of Yahweh began to be invoked again. Wait a minute. People say that nobody heard Yahweh until Moses or until Isaiah or until the... No, not true. And if you notice, it don't say they first heard of Yahweh. From the very beginning, Yahweh made. Adam knew Yahweh by name, Yahweh, not all them other things that we hear, the El Shaddai and this and this and this. He's all those things, but his name's Yahweh. Yes, he is your keeper. Yes, he is your healer. Yes, he is. But that's not some made up song that makes you feel good about yourself. And you have to be careful with that because you keep chanting his name and he says not to chant. I would be careful with those things, right? So, and as for Seth, to him also a son was born, and he named him Enosh. It was then that the name of Yahweh began to be invoked again. Not first, again. So now they're trying to do right again. They're having children. They're living their life. Now they're trying to come back to Yahweh after all the sinning, the killing, and nonsense, right? Let's go on. Chapter 5. This is the account of the beginnings of Adam. In the day that Yahweh created man, he made him in the likeness of Yahweh. Pretty clear, right? He created them male and female and blessed them and named them mankind in the day that they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness after his image and named him Seth. And he begot Seth. The days of Adam were 800 years, and we get other sons and daughters. So all the days of Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Now, people say, well, wait a minute. He lived 930 years. Yes, 930 years. So you got to be able to do the math. Yahweh says one day with him is as 1,000 years. So he kept his word that surely within the day, and that's within the day, not that day had passed, according to Yahweh, not man, right? If one day is 1,000 years, Yahweh kept his word and said, surely the day that you eat of the tree, you shall die. That's why he didn't get to 1,000, because within the day that he partook and ate, he died. Makes sense? Perfectly. So all the days Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Seth lived 105 years and begot Enosh. After he begot Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and begot other sons and daughters. So all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. Enosh lived 90 years and begot Quonan. After he begat Quonan, Enosh lived 815 years and begot other sons and daughters. So all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. Quonan lived 70 years and begot Mahalalel. Right? Now, why is it telling this? Because we have to have a lineage. We have to know what we're talking about. We have to go from Adam to Yeshua to perfect the bloodline, right? After he begat Methuselah, Quonan lived 840 years and begot other sons and daughters. So all the days of Quonan were 910 years, and he died. Mathiel lived 65 years and begat Yared. After he begat Yared, Mathiel lived 830 years and begat other sons and daughters. So all the days of Mathiel were 895 years, and he died. Yared lived 162 years and begot Enoch. And he begot Enoch. Yared lived 800 years and begot other sons and daughters. So all the days of Yared were 962 years, and he died. You notice it went from 900 now to 800. So all the days of Yared were 962 years, and he died. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked in reverence of Yahweh 300 years and begot other sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with Yahweh, although he once was nothing in the eyes of Yahweh. At that time, Yahweh received him to himself. So, you can, all this salvation and all this have to have and all this and all that. Enoch walked with Yahweh, and he did what Yahweh said. And because he did what Yahweh said, he went home. The wages of sin is death. Without sin, no death. Now, he had 300 years, which most people don't get, right? He had 300 years to walk righteously and do what Yahweh said. But if we would try that, Yahweh doesn't change. The problem becomes is we spend too much time saying, that's a Jewish thing, that's a Christian thing, that's a Hebrew thing, that's a Sabbath thing. I ain't got to do this thing. You ain't got to do it. And we spend more time complaining and whining and going about than just doing it. If we would just do it, watch what our little hi-ho says, if you will, right? Watch what comes out of this. Stop aggravating people. Stop making people mad. Stop talking and lying and harassing and gossiping in it and on and murmur complaining. And just maybe we could get closer to the Creator himself, Yahweh. Methuselah lived 187 years and begot Lamech. After he begot Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and begot other sons and daughters. You notice in the 800s, they're having sons and daughters. So all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. 969. What a life. Lamech lived 182 years, and he begot a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, this son will be comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground that Yahweh has cursed. And he begat Noah. Lamech lived 595 years and begat other sons and daughters. So all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. 777. I wonder what will be coming around this corner. See, there's numbers. There's things that we need to understand that the sevens and the eights and the sixes represent. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the earth and the daughters were born to them. What do you think is going to happen now? That the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. So these are where the stars fell to the ground. This is where the angels started disobeying and started taking women for themselves. See, the thing is, when Yahweh makes a covenant, when he tells us to do something, he's covering everybody. He's covering humans, he's covering angels, he's making everybody in their place of where they should be. The Meshe, the Yarak, they are always where they're supposed to be. If not, they're useless. Just one time, everybody says this and that and the other, but just one time that the moon is not a full moon when it's supposed to be a full moon. It's not a quarter moon, a half a moon. Don't give no light whatsoever, and it's supposed to be shining. It's done. In game, it's over. Same thing with the sun, the Meshe, right? This is the perfect world of Yahweh. When the angels don't do what they're supposed to do, guess where they get to go? Whether we like it or not, whether we say, well, I don't believe or I don't think, there ain't no thinking, there ain't no believing. That's just the way it is. The Creator says, obey me or else. No different than what we do. If you had an animal and it kicked you in the head and you said, are you crazy? What's wrong with you? It doesn't matter what it was, horse, donkey, whatever. It kicked you. You give it a chance and you say, okay, you do this again, I'm shooting you. You go out the next day and kicks you right in the head. What are you going to do? You're going to get a gun and destroy it because it's going to kill you or somebody like you or anybody gets around it. We have this knowledge, right? We know if we let a murderer out and he murders again and then he murders again, well, what's the point of putting him in a bar? We know what he's going to do. After 2-3 times, we know what's going to happen. That's where justice becomes not justice, it becomes just people paying for a murderer. That's why it says a murderer shall be put to death, because you can't reform a murderer. In their heart, in their mind, you can't reform them. That's why they give them the electric chair. They hung them from trees. They did these things to them because they knew, just like everybody knows today, that most murderers are always going to be a murderer. Yes, there might be one person that comes and says but that's at one thing, and that's usually not a cold murder. That's the axe, like the scripture talks about. It's someone who the axe fell off, the hammer came off, they got bopped in the head. It was an accident, not a plain cold-hearted murder, right? Let's go on. So it came to pass when men began to multiply on the earth, and the daughters were born to them, that the sons of the gods, the stars of the heavens, if you will, saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves and all whom they choose. Now, how could this happen? Because Yahweh covered, and we'll go over this again. We'll see it in the priests. We'll see it in Corinthians. We'll see it clearly and plainly of what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches you're supposed to cover yourself. If you don't cover yourself, then you bring things upon yourself. And as a woman, if she make a man, again, not my opinion, not, it's what the Bible says. It's what the scripture teaches. If you got a problem with it, then you're going to have a problem with it. The scripture teaches if a woman make a man lust after her, then it's the woman's fault because the woman is alluring. The same thing we seen Eve. She didn't have to give that to him. If she really loved and cared for him, if she was really his helpmeet, she would have never, ever, especially as soon as she fell, and she knew she was naked, right? Adam took it and he knew he was naked. So if she knew the disgusting, guiltful nakedness, how could she pass that on to him and say she loved him? How could she possibly say, well, I'm going to die, so here, you might as well die too. This ain't Romeo and Juliet. That stuff ain't funny. You wouldn't do that to your children, I'd hope. You wouldn't do that to the elderly, I'd hope. Right? So the whole point here, they stopped covering their bodies. The angels saw what they liked, and the angels went and took them as to wives. That's point blank what happened, and we'll prove it later. We can prove it any way you want to look at it. But women started running around without head covering, without clothes, without this, without that, being probably promiscuous and whatever, and they took them. Because it talks of if a woman's covered, then this can't happen. There's power upon her head that stops that. Now, remember, what's that got to do with me? Well, remember, it talks in the end days that as in the days of Noah. And it might surprise you, but only in the last, I know we think we're Muslims and think this, but only in the last 150 years, even in America, and not that far back, women wore a covering on their head. Whether it was a hat, a fishnet thing, a bonnet hat, a straw hat, a scarf. You ain't got to go back probably to your grandma, great grandma, depending on your age. And you know, and you can look it up and look in churches. You can look anywhere you want to. And women had something on their head. Even you go back to the 50s and 40s, you see the women had some kind of covering over their head. It wasn't because they was always cold. It wasn't because they had a bad flow, you know, their circulation was bad in the 20s and 30s, and they ate paint chips. And no, that ain't what it was about. So you can look it up. And I got a book of how far that goes back as well. And Yahweh said, the men of this world will never subject themselves to my word. Ain't that horrible? That should be one of the most horrible things you've ever heard in your life. Yahweh said, the men of this world will never subject themselves to my word. The law and the prophets, for they are indeed carnally minded, thus their days shall be 120 years. I don't know why we have people saying 80, 60, 70, 90, usually 70 and 80. I know people thinking that they really did something. I made it to 80. According to the Bible, I've outlived. You ain't outlived nobody. Have you heard 900, 969, 800? Why would you be prideful that you lived till 80? 80? These people are living to 900, 800, having kids at 800. Well, I'm happy I lived to 80. Well, now, woohoo. Tell Methuselah that. You know, matter of fact, go talk to Enoch. He made it to 300 and then got taken out of here. And Yahweh said, the men of this world will never subject themselves to my word, the law and the prophets, for they are indeed carnally minded. Thus their days shall be 120 years. Verse 3, chapter 6. Write it down, pencil it in, however you want to do it, but share it with the world. 120 years is the lifespan of man. Let's go. Now, where was we? 4, right? Okay. There were tyrants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of Elohim came in the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty ones who are the enemies of Yahweh, men in which even the days of old were known as men of infamous name. Then Yahweh saw that the wickedness of man was so great in the earth that every intent of the thoughts of man's heart was only evil continually. Ain't this horrible? Not only are man just throwing out everything Yahweh said to do, now their every thought, everything they think of is just evil. Sound kind of like what we see on TV today. Can't hardly get through a commercial, can't hardly hear a commercial on the radio, even on so-called Christian stations. Please send us money. Please send us this. Please do that. All greedy. Greed, greed, greed. And every intent of the thoughts of man's heart was only evil continually. And Yahweh regretted what man had become, for man failed to keep Yahweh's law, and man grieved Yahweh's Ruach HaKodesh. Well, you say the law didn't come about until when? You try to say that the law was done away with. You try to say this. Church Andy throws it out in your face every time you go to Sunday school. What was the problem? Same thing we see today. They failed to keep Yahweh's law. And these so-called teachers, preachers, and wolves and sheep's clothing and whatever they call themselves are teaching the exact same thing. Why? Another reason, or one of the reasons, we'll put one of the reasons why he destroyed this earth with water. This terra firma, this place that we live. So Yahweh said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth. From the face. It didn't say from a spinning ball. It doesn't say from any of that. It says from the face of the earth. Both man and beast, creeping thing, and bird of the air. For I am regretting what they, man, have become. Maybe you've heard of a child, or maybe you've had a child and you regret that child. You regret having the child. You regret what the child has become. It's not a horrible thing if they become unholy. We see it right here. Oh, you always got to love the children. You always got to. Well, most people love their children, but that doesn't mean that you don't regret. You don't see what has happened and what they become, right? We can't be unrighteous for even our children and then say, well, that murderer needs to burn. That's mighty nice of you. Your child, the murderer, is okay and he should be let out. But the murderer that you don't know or you just heard of and you ain't even witness to, he should burn and hang from a tree twice, right? Do we do this justly? Are we even in the realm, sadly, of what Yahweh is talking about? So Yahweh said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing and bird of the air, for I am regretting that they, man, have become. But Noah found grace, regard, and honor in the eyes of Yahweh. These are the beginnings of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his beginnings. Noah walked in the reverence of Yahweh. We see from the beginning, all we have to do is believe and trust and do what Yahweh says. Yahweh says, this is mine, I made it. Yes, sir. This is what I want you to do with it. Yes, sir. This ain't what I want you to do with it. Okay. Yes, sir. I don't want you to eat pig, pork, this, that, and the other. That's not for you to eat. I did not create that for you to eat. How, any way you look at that, you're breaking a commandment from the Most High. It doesn't matter what you like about it. You can have all the KFC you want, but if Yahweh says it's unclean, not to raise it, not to have it, you can eat it all you want to, and you claim whatever and whoever and everybody else. But if Yahweh says don't do it, who are we? What are we to stand there and say, I'll do what I want to? Okay, well, let's see how that turns out. I mean, it should be enough that it should prick your heart. It should hit you that he regretted he made man because of how awful they was. And it says they was doing what? Not doing his law, not doing what he said to do. Let's go on. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before Yahweh, and the earth was lawless, filled with violence. You know, when he says, depart from me, I never knew you, those who work lawlessness. So Yahweh looked upon the earth, and indeed, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And Yahweh said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and I will destroy them with the earth. Ain't that sad? He had destroyed the whole earth because men, shalom, brother, because men were so horrible and they just didn't obey him. You know, and people can say what they want. They can say grace and mercy abounds and all that. But obviously, when you get to the point of denying the Creator and denying what the Creator said to do, he doesn't like it. Because if you can say, well, grace and mercy abounds, then these poor people here should have been saying that same thing. And I imagine they probably was. They probably thought there's no way the Creator would destroy them. I mean, their lineage. Think about this. They are bloodline from Adam, Enoch. I mean, could you imagine? Enoch went away. Could you imagine? I mean, just put yourself in these people's shoes for a minute. We think Churchianity's so awesome. These people are talking about Enoch. He took him. He didn't even have to die. So some of these people were probably beyond Churchianity, right? They was probably so, so past Churchianity as we know it, right? They was probably thinking, oh man, we ain't ever going to die. How can we die when, we got Enoch? The same thing we see, before. What is it? F6WJ. I can't see that there. I don't want it. I'm trying to type this in.
GQ.
Okay.
Got it on Facebook.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's move on. So Yahweh looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And Yahweh said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through him, and I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, that is cypress. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and outside with pitch. And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, 450 feet long. Its width 50 cubits, 75 feet wide. That's a big boat, folks. That's an ocean liner. That's like an oil tanker. And its height 30 cubits, 45 feet. This is one supersized boat, if you will, ark. You shall make a window for the ark, and you shall finish it to a cubit, at least 18 inches from above, and set the door of the ark in the side. You shall build it with lower, middle, and upper decks inside. And behold, I myself am bringing the flood of waters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh in which the breath of life is. Everything on the earth shall die. Could you imagine this poor guy? Can you imagine Yahweh told this to Noah, right? We all have the same message basically in Revelations. We all hear what's going to happen and how it's going to go down. But how many people say, oh, grace and mercy and all these things? But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall go into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every species into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, and every creeping thing of the earth after its kind. 2 of every species will come to you to keep their kind alive. And you shall take for yourself of all the food that is eaten, and you shall gather this to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. So what's the food again? You shall take for yourself of all the food that is eaten, and you shall gather this to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. Thus Noah did according to all that Yahweh commanded him, so he did. I don't know how people say that there is no, there is no faith in works. There is no works in faith. There is, faith, but he continually shows us if we disobey, it costs us. And sometimes it costs the whole world. And if we don't listen and do what he says to do, he had to build this. The grace and the mercy was he was saved and his family was saved. But no doubt he had to build that ark. So I don't see why people get to the point that they think they ain't got to do what he says to do. And there's some kind of salvation wrapped up in that from whom? We'll do chapter 7, then we'll shut it down for the night. Then Yahweh said to Noah, come into the ark, you and your household, for I have seen you righteous before me in this generation. You shall take with you 7 pairs. Now, a lot of people didn't get this because they only read the little part about the 2 pairs, right? A lot of people like 2 by 2, right? Read the whole scripture, read the whole chapter and the next chapter and see what it really says, and you'll know what it says. All right. You shall take for you 7 pairs of every clean animal, a male and his female, 2 of animals that are unclean, and a male and his female. So 7 pairs of every clean animal. But 7 pairs of birds of the air, male and female, you will take with you to keep the species alive on the face of the earth. Because if you ate the clean animals and you only had 2, then you're done, right? If you only had 2 cows and you ate 1, you're finished. Cow ain't going to have another cow unless they was, see what I'm saying? And if you ate both of them, there ain't no more cows, no more hamburger meat, no more sacrifices. We're in trouble as it is. But 7 pairs of birds of the air, male and female, you will take with you to keep the species alive on the face of all the earth. For after 7 days more, I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And I will destroy all living things that I have made from the face of the earth. And Noah did according to all that Yahweh commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters came on the earth. Did you imagine this? Noah was 600 years old, and people say, I'm too old, right? I'm too old for that. I just can't do that. It's like, why can't you do that? It doesn't matter in age. We have to do what Yahweh says to do. And just knowing, there's a lot of people say, well, I can't have this. I can't do that. I can't. If he puts it in your heart, you can do it. And he will give you the healing. He will give you whatever. Right? So he will give you what you need. He will equip you to do. Shalom. We have to know what's being said, but the whole point of this is for people that's new coming as well as everybody. And, there's nothing wrong with, you've been doing it for a long time, the refresher of knowing, because some of us don't know the difference between the 2 and the 7. Some of us don't know what's going on and we don't know where to find it. So we find these things and we know what's going on, right? And Noah did according to all that Yahweh commanded him. For after 7 days more, I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and I will destroy all living things that I have made from the face of the earth. Noah did what he told him. If Noah wouldn't have done what he told him, if Noah would have threw up his hands and said, "Oh, grace and mercy," you think he wouldn't have got destroyed? Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters came on the earth. So Noah, with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives, went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Of clean beasts, of unclean beasts, of birds, of everything that creeps on the earth. 2 by 2 they went into the ark to Noah, male and female, as Yahweh had commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month, of the moon, and on the day that the fountains of the great deep were broken up and the windows of the heaven were opened. Now, that seems like a little hint that people say, well, we don't know the calendar. We can't keep a calendar. We do. What? Yeah, that's what I thought you said. Because right here, we can see Noah was 600. And in the second moon, what? In the 600th year of Noah's life. I don't know if we've just read past this, or we went by this, or we wasn't taught this, or we just kind of do this number when we come up to these things. But the Yarek is in the Bible, and it's called the Yarek in the Hebrew, right? So I know all you so-called scholars and people out there, you know this. It's nothing new, right? But that's what it's called, the Yarek, the moon. The Kodesh is not the moon. The Kodesh, that's not the moon particularly. The name of the moon, see, that's why names are so important. Well, I'll call him what I want to, not you. Do whatever you're big enough to do. You do whatever that you want to spend eternity doing. That will be your eternity, and you will remember. And you will remember why you have no treasures, or why you're where you are, or why he says, "Depart from me, I never knew you, lawless." I mean, that's all up to you, but don't stand in front of him saying, well, I thought don't mean much anywhere, really, does it? I thought I had enough gas, and it's 0. We're in trouble. I thought I had enough gas to make it through the desert, and it's 120. I thought I had enough gas. Oh, yeah, and by the way, I didn't bring the water because I didn't think I was going to run out of gas. Oh, yeah, and I didn't bring any supplies because I didn't think I was going to freeze to death. I thought is a terrible thing to have written on a tombstone, right? I thought, therefore I am. Therefore you are cold, wet. So, without going any further down that rabbit hole, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second moon, the 17th day of the moon, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of the heaven were opened. So we see we ain't got to go to Moses and figure out his calendar. We ain't got to go down the road and figure out that calendar. We know right here that on the second moon, in the 17th day of that moon. So on the 17th day of that moon tells us the second moon. They had to have the first moon, and they had the second moon, and then 17 days after the full moon was when this happened. We can perfectly date things back, forth, just like he says. Just like he said, what was it, 2 chapters, 3 chapters, 4 chapters ago, he said the sun, moon, the stars are for dates, times, years, months, right? So right here, we can read it for ourselves. So the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On the very same day, Noah and Noah's son, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them entered the ark. They, every beast after its kind, all cattle after their kind, every creeping thing that creeps on the earth after its kind, and every bird after its kind, every bird of every species. Why every bird? Because they would have drowned it. They couldn't have flown for 40 days and 40 nights. Plus, if all this deluge is coming from heaven, from the Shelly M, again, not from outer space, not from that, the windows of heaven. Now, either there's a pouring from everything throughout the cosmos, as people love to say, throughout the universe, there had to be some kind of a wave water coming at these people. Or it's just like it says, it was right above them, the windows of heaven opened, and boom, it flooded. The grate of the deep opened up and it flooded, right? Not a big thing if we just follow the Bible, just like it says that all will see him. You can't see on the other side of the world. You just can't. It doesn't work that way. If we are on opposite sides, then we're going to have to wait until everything lines up. But the whole world is going to see him when the heavens go apart like a scroll. It doesn't say that, all the scientific garbogle of the earth's going to stop and the water's going to fly out and the sun and the moon's going to bounce off each other and it's going to look like a big ping pong. Don't say none of that, does it? It says the heavens, the Shelly M, are going to open like a scroll and everybody's going to see. So I wonder what happened when the windows of heaven opened here. You think they seen the Creator? You think they knew what they'd done? You think they was trembling when those waters come down upon them? And they went into the ark to Noah, 2 by 2, and all flesh in which the breath of life. So those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went into Yahweh, had commanded him, and Yahweh shut him up. Now the flood was on the earth 40 days. The waters increased and lifted up, right? The water on the earth was how long? The flood was on the earth for 40 days. The waters increased and lifted up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters came up and greatly increased on the earth, and the ark moved about on the surface of the waters. So it sounds like the ark was up almost to the Shelly M, right? The waters came up and greatly increased on the earth, and the ark moved about the surface of the waters. And the waters prevailed greatly on the earth, and all the high hills under the whole heaven were covered. The waters covered more than 15 cubits, more than 21 feet above the mountains. Wow. So you take the highest mountain, which is what, Everest? How tall is Everest? And divide or subtract your elevation from Everest. And now you just came to know how deep the water was where you are. Pretty simple math, right? We ain't going to be a rocket scientist. Get it? It's pun intended. So the waters came up and greatly increased on the earth, and the ark moved about the surface of the waters, and the waters prevailed greatly on the earth, and all the high hills under the whole heaven were covered. The waters covered more than 15 cubits, more than 21 feet above the mountains, and all flesh died that lived on the earth, birds, cattle, beasts, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, and every man. So, why did this have to happen? Because if we have people and we have giants and we have all these things, then it has to be that deep, right? It has to be that much, because if not, what happens? We have people that can stand on it and make it through it. We have animals that might be able to stand on it, right? So as far as we can see that we'll go to its elevation. Mount Everest is 8,848.86, right? 29,035 feet. 29,035 feet. So you add 29,031 or 35 to, what does it say? 21. That gives us 29,056. Is that right? 56. 29,056 foot of water. Now you can spin all you want to, and you can play all them games, but I don't think gravity and all that works into this equation, right? So the whole point of it is, though, is it was over Everest, if that is our tallest point. So you put your elevation in, whatever it may be, 800, 900, you go down south and it's like 13 or 15. Could you imagine standing in New Orleans and it's minus 13 feet anyway? 29,000 foot of water. 29,000 foot of water. Just generally speaking, give or take 100 feet, obviously, but probably about 29,000, 20 foot of water over your head. Yeah, you're not surviving that. That's just, could you imagine? So we'll say it one more time. Verse 20, the waters covered more than 15 cubits, more than 20 feet above the mountains. And all flesh died on the earth, birds, cattle, beasts, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, and every man, all those whose nostrils that breathe the life, the spirit, the Ruach of Yahweh had been. All that lived on the dry land died. Ain't that terrible? So he destroyed all living things which were on the face of the ground, both man and cattle, creeping thing and bird of the air. They were destroyed from the earth. Only Noah and those who were with him in the ark remained. And the waters flooded the earth 150 days. Like half a year, right? 150 days. Now, for all these people to say, dear old grandmammy only knew Jesus, and she only did this. And how do you know that? Because we see Yahweh right here in this Bible. We see Yahweh in a lot of Bibles. We have heard this. It's been sung in Catholic churches. It's been all over the world, and there's always been a remnant. So, point in case being is we don't really know what great-great-great-grandma did, do we? And furthermore, it doesn't really matter that much as to our own salvation. We need to worry about what we're doing, because a lot of people say, well, if grandma is grandma and grandpa and all that. But what we have to worry about is we have the knowledge. We know Yahweh. We know the Sabbath, and we know better than disobey him. And if you don't know better than disobeying him, this is a pretty good lesson in what happens. Well, I don't believe he'll put nobody in hell. He killed them all, did he not? He wiped them all off the face, even the animals. The Creator is not playing, and he doesn't owe you an explanation. And the reason why is because we wouldn't have had a clean animal to eat. If all these horrible things would have kept going, there wouldn't have been no clean-blooded animal to eat. Nothing would have been, right? And what they was doing is just terrifying everything, eating each other, and doing all kinds of terrible things. So let's go on. We can read that later. You can look it up later. So he waited yet another 7 days and sent out the dove, which did not again return unto him. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first moon, the first day of the moon, that the waters were dried up from the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and truly the surface of the ground was dry. If this don't tell you the calendar, then I don't know what does. It's talking of the moon, not the sun, not somebody's calendar. It ain't saying Mr. this and that and the other, and the priest or this one. It don't give you, it says the first moon and the first day of the moon that the waters were dried up. So it's pretty much telling you what's going on. And we can again go back to these dates and times. That the waters were dried up from the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and truly the surface of the ground was dry. And in the second moon, on the 27th day of the moon, the earth was dry. On the second moon, on the 27th day of the moon, the earth was dry. Then Yahweh spoke to Noah, saying, go out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds and cattle, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they may abound on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast creeping, every creeping thing, every bird, whatever creeps on the earth went out of the ark. Your little snails and everything, right? Then Noah built an altar to Yahweh and took of every clean animal and every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar he had made. So again, this proves right here there was more than the 2 by 2 that we usually get, because that would have been all them animals. He took them and slaughtered them, and well, I guess he knows what he's doing. And I believe he blessed them, and of course they multiplied, and probably at a very high rate, but still the 7, not just the 2, right? And notice Noah built an altar. You tell somebody to do something today as far as, something, anything really, works, legalist, Pharisee, Sadducee, what, you get called anything. Hey, can you go and, I don't do any work, brother. What are you talking about? Then Noah built an altar. After all this, after building the boat, don't you think Noah could have been the one that would sit back and said, but he didn't. He thanked Yahweh and built an altar to Yahweh. And he took the clean animal of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings of the altar he had made. Another proof that all these laws was obviously in effect, but nobody wanted to keep them. Or obviously the people that died in the flood didn't want to keep them. Seems like the animals were starting to be tainted, and they didn't think they had to obey either, right? What are we seeing today? People don't think they got to obey. At no time in history has it been so horribly bad that people are so deceived that they think going to Sunday church or even keeping the Sabbath or doing whatever, they just ain't got to do nothing. Build an altar, do this, do that. I mean, oh, come on now. Yahweh help us. Yahweh forgive us. And Yahweh smelled the pleasing aroma. Then Yahweh said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake. Although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. Oh, bye-bye, global warming. Goodbye, scientists, whatever they're saying. We have more believers, so-called, chasing theories that people, man-made, has come and told us, and we're looking into them. We're looking into this global warming. We're looking into this. Why? For what point? To prove what? It says right here, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest. That's why we still are going to keep Sukkot, because he said seed time and then the harvest. Harvest, seed time. It's always going to happen as long as it remains. Right? It's until Revelation that he drops actually his wrath. Right? So we ain't got to worry about it. We ain't got to worry about global warming. We ain't got to worry about all this. All that's just a bunch of, hey, let's get these people to believe what we believe, and we'll charge them for the air they breathe before you get off. You'll be breathing air, and your air condition will cost, and things will cost more than anything because people, that's right, global warming, it's a thing. Really? Tell me something, New York. Tell me something. How come we never hear this nonsense in the winter? It's only in the dead of summer that we truly hear global warming nonsense. We don't hear it now when it's zero and everybody's pipes busting, when water's as hard as bricks. We don't hear about it. Ain't that amazing? Trust in Yahweh. Stop listening to men. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, and winter and summer and day and night, it shall not cease. They can play all the games they want to, but they're not going to stop what he put forward. Shall we stop there? We run out of time. We go just a little bit further. Why not? Chapter 9. So Yahweh blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Now I want to back up there because in chapter 8, for all these calendar people, there's your calendar. It says clearly the Yarach, and it gives us a calendar and how to follow that calendar. Let's go. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the air, on all that moves on the earth, and all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hand. Every clean moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I have given you all clean things, even as the green herbs. Every clean, it doesn't say everything on earth, just like Church Andy thinks they heard from some demonic nonsense, puffy, wolfy pastor thing. Every clean moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I have given you all clean things, even as the green herbs, but you shall not eat flesh with its life in its blood. You don't eat the flesh, you don't eat the blood, right? You drain the blood and then you eat it. Surely for your life blood, I will demand an accounting. From the hand of every beast, I will require it. And from the hand of man, from the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of Yahweh he made man. And as for you, be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply in it. Then Yahweh spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, and as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. Thus I establish my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And Yahweh said, this shall be the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. And what do we see that rainbow has become today? So wouldn't you say that these people are about due for another shellacking, if you will? They're about due. It's not going to be a flood, but they're about due if we see what's going on. Let's go on. And it shall be when I bring a cloud over the earth that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. The waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. The rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I will look on it to remember the everlasting covenant between me and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. Now, wait a minute. Let's think about this one for a minute. The rainbow shall be in the what? The cloud. and Yahweh will look upon it. Where's Yahweh? Right above there. Is he not? We ain't got to worry about Yahweh being way so far. If Yahweh says he will set his rainbow in the cloud, and he himself will look on it and remember the covenant between me and every living creature and all flesh, which is him that is on the earth, where's Yahweh at? And Yahweh said to Noah, this is a sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all the flesh that lives upon the earth. Now the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham became the father of Canaan. These were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. And Noah, a man of soul, proceeded to plant a vineyard, and he drank of the wine, and was drunk, and became uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and he told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Jacob took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. You don't think modesty is an issue? So Noah woke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. Then he said, cursed be Canaan, a slave. Wow. Cursed be Canaan, a slave of servants he shall be to his brothers. And he said, blessed be Yahweh, the father of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. May Yahweh enlarge Jacob, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. 950, just what? Just short of Methuselah, right? 969, 950, 19 years short. So again, we have to understand, we can learn a lot from the beginning, but we have to listen, we have to pay attention. And that's why I would submit to you, a lot of the churchianity don't want you in the middle. They don't want you in the middle of this. They want you in Matthew. They want you in John 3:16. They want you to read, a little bit of 1 Peter or something like that. Just stay away from the hard stuff. It's probably not for you. You probably wouldn't understand. It's all that beget stuff anyway, right? Is it or is it? Now we're going to get into that some more, I'm sure, but you have to know what it's talking about. So I would submit to you, here's your calendar. Right here in Genesis, it's specifically saying the moon, the second moon, the moon, the second moon, the 17th day of the moon. So we know the Yarech's well involved. We don't have to make things, folks. We don't have to make it up. We don't have to make it fit. You ain't got to be a super genius scientist. This is made up so a child can see and understand. And all they got to do is say, yep, there's the moon. Now I can count and I can use my little fingers. And for most of them, what are we doing? First day of the month. And then we start counting the 7th day of the month, and on and on and on it goes. And then we can take a little pencil or a little piece of paper and we can write down our own calendars. We do. There shouldn't be a debate on these things. It should be, this is what it says. That's what it says. That's what we do. When you start doing what they did is where it becomes a problem. When you start making it a man-made, I know, it ain't what I know. It's what the scripture says. But I know what the scriptures say. You know what I'm saying? When you bring this back to the Hebrew and you can pull Torah scrolls and put it for word and make it in Hebrew, and it's easier in Hebrew because it's not all the these and the those and the is and that. It's more of a concrete, right? It's more of, you get the point because this is the point, instead of this and therefore and thy way and this way, and then you get into thus King English and all that. That I don't know how many people, unless you like plays and that kind of thing, don't really like that, right? Therefore, thus says James the Just. If James the Just will do, man, just tell me what I need to know. I don't want to see a play and drama. I just want to see what's the truth. Give me the truth. Give me freedom or give me, right? Let's don't go too far. All right. Well, I thank you for listening and for watching. That we're going to get into this some more. We're going to try to go through it. And we're going to try to touch and bring out those points. The Yarek, the moon, the calendars, what all it's telling us. Instead of we're just reading, we have to pull out what he wants us to know. And he wants us to know they kept the law. Well, some of them didn't, and they got washed away. But there's a specific, perfect line you can see. Those who kept the law, Noah. Those who didn't keep the law, right? Those who didn't believe in modesty and thought it was funny to laugh at their naked dad, and those who got cursed for doing that, and those who covered and walked backwards and got blessed for that. And how much we should be able to say, you did good, here's your blessing. You're cursed. You know, yeah, right. You go to church and say that today, right? Y'all cursed, you bunch of, you can't tell me that. You don't judge me. You don't tell me what to do. Why didn't he run saying that? Why didn't him run out saying, well, you can't tell. Okay, you can't cuss my son. How dare you? We don't hear none of that, right? Because he did it, and that's what it did. And that's what was said, and that was the end of it. Because it already happened. Once it came out of his mouth, it was done. The cursing and the blessing went forward, and we can read about it. We'll see it later. Those cursing and blessings are going right along with them, right into Nimrod, right into, right? You want to be accursed? You want to do evil things? Well, here, go do some evil things. I'm going to build a tower to, right? So until next time, may Yahweh bless you. May his kindness shine upon you. May he grant you shalom, the Aaronic blessing that Yahweh told Aaron and the Levite priest to bless the people, right? But you can't bless what people don't want to do, right? So that blessing is for the people, but it can only bless the people that are doing what Yahweh says, right? There's a blessing and a cursing. So people say, well, you say this, but I don't feel blessed. Well, stop doing those things and then you'll be blessed. Stop doing the things he says not to do and you'll be blessed. Make sense? Perfectly. Okay. Yahweh willing, next time we're going to start off in chapter 10, and then I would like to go over the Paleo-Hebrew, the Alpha through the Tav, and do a little bit with that. But actually, we got an hour next. Tomorrow we'll try it. If not, we got the healing in the herd. So come back for that. Till next time, shalom, everybody. Have a great and wonderful night. May Yahweh bless you. And may you be blessed by this. And may you learn and may